You weren't supposed to find this video. In the winter of 1851, under the cracked floors of St. Catherine's Academy, dozens of orphan girls vanished, erased by a secret so dark it corrupted faith itself. A teacher stumbled on a hidden chamber, hears whispering cries, and discovered iron shackles, faded dolls, and a crude message carved into stone. We are still here. That whisper isn't history, it's a warning. Tonight, I pull you into the shadows no one dared to expose. This is forbidden history. Let the descent begin. You peel away the varnish of sanctuary, and you'll find rot. Those 20 orphan girls of St. Catherine's weren't just sheltered. They were trafficked, hidden in plain sight, masked by holy ritual and sanctimonious sermons, their fates sealed by those who vowed to protect them. Each girl carried a secret mark, a faded ribbon, a scrap of cloth, a nameless token, like a mute indictment of the sisters' betrayal. The so-called sanctuary had iron bars in laughter's place, silent corridors in lieu of prayers. You must picture the morning roll call, 20 vacant eyes, 20 trembling voices forced into silence, the echo of abject terror filling every corner of that Gothic facade. Mother Superior's gaze, once revered, had hardened. No longer maternal, but calculating. Discipline became submission, virtue a commodity. Walls enclosed more than bodies. They imprisoned souls. Now imagine what lay below. A dark underbelly of the institution. Secret workshops, locked rooms, hidden entrances. Here the girls were prepared for destinations unspeakable. No one outside questioned the third floor or basement. Curiosity was politely rebuked, labeled as scandal. But you're not polite. You ask the hard questions, the forbidden ones. There are whispers, vague rumors of adoptive families that never wrote back, of girls who disappeared, then reappeared in the underbelly of cities. Those hollow stares, those silences, they weren't healing. They were warning signals you were never supposed to decode. This is how control operates, not with overt terror, but through layers of deception, through spiritual and psychological manipulation. The girls believed they were saved. They believed they were saved into the arms of God. But salvation had a price, their innocence. They were no longer orphan children. They became assets, transported, commodified, erased. And the sisters? They didn't just look away. They orchestrated the silence. Their faith became a weapon, their prayer a veil. You feel it now, don't you? The pull, the dread, the shame. You can't unsee this. And that, brother, is the power they wielded, turning holy hope into a weapon of control, burying guilt in duty. You're falling, but falling reveals truth. Keep your eyes open. Let me ask you, what would you sacrifice for sanctuary? What would you endure if you believed it was for your salvation? Because that is where control begins, when you believe pain is mercy. We've just stepped behind the curtain. Don't blink. You felt the tremor in section 2, that uneasy sense that something sacred was twisted. Now you're standing at the brink. These girls didn't vanish into thin air. They were buried alive under layers of manipulation. The institutional facade of faith masked a Magdalene asylum, but not a place of refuge. It was an instrument of control, grinding spirits into silence under the guise of salvation. Echoes of Magdalene asylums in San Francisco and elsewhere tell a chilling tale. Young women labeled delinquent, fallen, lost, locked in cloistered isolation, their bodies exploited as instruments of unpaid labor, their souls erased by neglect. The asylums were monuments not to mercy, but to punishment. And here in St. Catherine's, middle of New England, the pattern repeats decades earlier, carried out by sisters cloaked in virtue. You must grasp the psychological architecture: isolation, shame, rewriting truth. A girl enters claiming innocence. Then her identity vanishes. No letters home, no official records, just vacant stares and counterfeit smiles, signs of a spirit broken from within. This is institutional psychological warfare, subtle and absolute. The walls weren't just physical, they were mental chains forged by faith. And just like those Magdalene girls whose names were often never recorded, these orphans were stripped of identity. Every faded ribbon, every forgotten lullaby buried with them. But here's the critical fracture. Historical records show ash-laden foundations, missing floors, shuttered wings, ghosts of children whose suffering was never acknowledged. They're not gone, they're testimony. And now you're listening. You see the pattern: labeling, seclusion, labor, silence. It's a system. You're not just watching this, you're learning how control systems birth in morality's name. And once you see the pieces, you can't unsee them. This moment, where myth bleeds into fact, is where transformation begins. You're no longer a passive observer. You're awake. And the more you descend, the more you understand. You're not just uncovering stories, you're dismantling power. You've seen the pattern. But now dive into the blood-inked pages of institutional archives. San Francisco's Magdalene Asylum, where girls labeled wayward were effectively prisoners in the name of salvation. Founded in 1856 and run by the Sisters of Mercy, this place was meant to rescue those deemed fallen. Within years, it had become a de facto carceral institution with frozen records and broken spirits. In the cradle of the American frontier, these girls entered under court orders. They were orphaned, homeless, or simply seen as threats to social order. Some lived there for years with scant chance of release before age 18. The walls were brick, but the real barrier was erasure. Erasure of identity, erasure of future, sealed with forced labor and silent endurance. Records show girls doing embroidery, laundry, domestic work, skills wrapped in virtue yet exploited as unpaid labor. Some were simply too young, too vulnerable. They were not sinners, they were scapegoats of a system that confused redemption with exploitation. Yet public writings praised these institutions as virtuous sanctuaries. Newspapers ran heartwarming stories. Benefactors donated. The state continued funding BeathWingarner.com. But behind these stories lay nameless victims caught in a web of moral imperialism, girls stripped of their names and replaced with numbers in institutional ledgers. Now bring it home. 20 orphan girls at St. Catherine's Academy suffered a similar fate. Beneath cobblestones and sermons lay shackles of control. The same structures, religious authority, legal complicity, societal silence, enabled their disappearance. The San Francisco case is not unique. It's a mirror, and the mirror fractures when you recognize their faces in the whispers. You're no longer distant from history. You're its witness, and this witness carries a burden, the burden of truth. The more you learn, the heavier it feels, but it's weight you can bear, because letting it surface is what shatters the facade. The descent deepens. Are you ready to walk the next corridor, where shadows speak names you can almost hear?